Hi, welcome to Field Education for Counselling, Field Education 2 subject for this year. My apologies for the brightness of this video, but I'm actually using my phone because I couldn't find another device around the college. But anyway, it'll do the trick. Um, really looking forward. My name's Richard. I'm going to be the lead lecturer for this year, taking over from the amazing Becky Wood, who did this subject the last few years. Really looking forward to working with the class here in Adelaide and in lesser capacity, working with the Perth students as well as online students, which I'll be looking after as well. And also great to have June on board over in Perth, who the Perth students will have a lot more to do with on a day-to-day sort of basis. This course is quite complex, but fantastic and very rich. I feel in terms of what we'll get out of it. But yeah, I really encourage you to read through in preparation for this course and get your head around it. It took me time myself as I kind of inherited the course to go through the subject description as well as the subject page and just work out exactly how it all worked. It can seem a little overwhelming to begin with, but to be honest, when you read through, it does follow through quite logically, and so you can get your head around it quite quickly, or you can get your head around it eventually. Doesn't have to be quickly. So encourage you to just spend time with it. Read through the subject description. Read through the sequentially the way it suggests on the subject page, the online page. And if you do those things, you should be able to get a good understanding of what's required, both if you're an internal or external student, because it's slightly different for both. And then any questions that you have after that point, obviously, please come to myself and or June if you want a more face-to-face over in Perth. But otherwise, yeah, flick me an email or give me a call or flick me a message on the online site, and I'm more than happy to accommodate and try and answer your question and help your query. Just a bit about me. I run my own counselling practice, my own private practice at the moment, generally down in the southern suburbs. But I counsel people all over Adelaide and even actually outside of Adelaide via Zoom at different times. I finished my master's in counselling practice here at Tabor in 2018, end of 2018. I predominantly use ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, as a modality, which is not included in this particular course. But as well as I do quite a bit of work with people who've experienced trauma, so I have a very good understanding of trauma, and as well as couples relationship kind of counselling. So I bring a very current practice, I guess, and understanding of practice and accountability for my own practice to the table when I supervise this field education. And so really looking forward to sitting with you in the space of a counselling room, particularly in the first semester, when we're doing a lot of practical work, building up those skills as competent counsellors. And then with the view to, obviously in second semester, as part of this subject, going out to an organisation and doing 200 hours of placement as a counsellor and a psychoeducator within that context. So as I alluded there, our first semester really is spending time together counselling each other. And the way the format that takes is that will be formed into triads. Given the numbers, there might be some just duos as well. I'm not quite sure what the two version of triads is. I think it's duos. But yeah, that might be a possibility. But basically, across the first semester, across 9 weeks, you'll get an experience of being a counsellor, being counselled, and watching counselling. That's the experience of the triad. So within the 3 hour time slot, across the 9 weeks, there'll be a few workshops thrown in amongst that, so that'll cover the 12 weeks. But yeah, across those times, you'll essentially counsel somebody. One person will be a counsellor, another person will be being counselled, other person will be an observer. The session will go for around 40 minutes, and then time for feedback from particularly the observer, which will be guided by templates that we provide online. And so obviously across the 3 hours, each person will get a role, a chance to take one of those roles each. And so in your triads that you were put in at the beginning, those triads won't change essentially. Excuse me, I just got a message. Won't change essentially unless there's some particular issue, which might be from whatever might happen, but otherwise, unless there's extenuating circumstances, those triads will be the triads that you stay in. The purpose being that you actually then get to see through the counselling of a person, and so the person you counsel will generally be the same all the way through. So you'll actually won't switch around the roles within the triad. You'll stay with the same person who's the counsellor, counsellee. And part of that is to develop as real as possible the situation or the experience rather of being in a counselling room with a client. And so what I really encourage you to do in your lead up to this experience is to treat this, even though it's students with students, as a counsellor. I want you to actually not think I'm just going to come into a triad. I know you've had experience in other subjects in triads which are a bit more informal, but this time it's kind of coming in as you would if this was a client that you've never met before that's come into your own practice, or as a student counsellor practice. So be professional about it, as professional as you can. Dress appropriately to the way that you would as a counsellor. Don't turn up, it's 9 o'clock start. Don't turn up at 9:05. Be late for your appointment. Come beforehand to be ready to jump into the space and start your counselling session. And I guess in terms of that professionality too, really prepare yourself that you are the counsellor, and that's the role that you're going to take, and prepare yourself well, and give yourself every chance to put yourself in that position so that you learn from that experience as much as you can before you go out into an organisation and do the same kind of thing. Similarly, as a person who's being counselled, I know in the past some of the triads you more make up kind of stuff. This is an experience where, to a greater extent, you're bringing real life situations to the table. There's obviously some confidentiality within the triad group. So we're not going to be talking outside of the triad about what's going on in other with other classmates or in other triads. So there's a nice confidentiality that's there, even though you're being observed, obviously. So there's an extra person in the room, which is not generally happening in most counselling sessions. But be prepared to actually share, some of the things that you are dealing with in life. Hence the wellbeing survey as a starting point, which I talked to the orientation students, and also in Becky's video for those who couldn't make that particular session. That's why that's important to fill out before you start next Monday, because that's an important factor of starting to think about. We all bring our issues and vulnerabilities to the table. I certainly have some, and I certainly access people for my own things that I need to continually navigate and deal with in terms of my own life and my own life experience. And so that's what I'm encouraging you to bring to the table as well. Plus, obviously, as counsellors, it's part of the skill is to make a comfortable and safe environment for a person to be able to share those kind of things. So it'll be a partnership as you work through those things. From my role and in June as supervisors, essentially what we do is we will be within each triad, watching the triad as well across the different weeks. So we'll probably spend a week in each triad, and then obviously the next week we swap, and then we swap again. I think with the numbers it means like every 3 weeks essentially. So we'll be in your triad as an extra supervisor, so that we can kind of have a look and give you feedback as well in terms of the counselling skills. Becky's video, which is I've left online because it's so detailed and in good Becky style, some fantastic information and very clear and concise. So have a look at that video if you haven't done the orientation with me as a student, and that'll just tell you kind of how the next few weeks unfolds and what you need to look at in terms of particularly those sessions and how you look at that across the online page and the subject description. But yeah, basically from Monday, this coming Monday, come prepared to counsel. So come prepared. We're not going to do a lot more introduction. We're going to come in and start kind of as we go along, and obviously it's going to be an orientation or an intake session rather that you're going to do, and there's particular forms that you need to obviously have ready to do that intake process. But we're just going to get straight into it. We're not going to spend time explaining the process. We're just going to get into our triads and we're going to get stuck into the process. So that's probably as much as I need to tell you. The key things, just to reiterate, prepare well. So really get your head around the subject, particularly the first semester, how it shapes. So read through that subject description, read through the stuff that's online, brush up on your SOAP note writing, download and print off the forms that you need for the first session, for the intake, and prepare yourself emotionally and mentally too. Emotionally to, as a counsellor to share, as an observer to give honest and appropriate feedback, and as a counsellor to obviously set up, be ready to go to be, honour your counsellee, set up a safe and nice space that they can actually share within. And build that rapport. And obviously, the quiz, I encourage the people who came to the orientation session to do the quiz. It's only due after the first session, but I encourage you to do it as quickly as you can, because it's a brush up of the main skills that you'll need for the first few weeks, which is those listening skills and the whole Ivy and Ivy skill base. And then some work around the modalities as well, the different modalities that we'll be utilising once we get the case conceptualisation aspect going. Will you use solution focus, will you use Gestalt, will you use CBT, and why would you use those things? So do that quiz, make your brush up on those things, which will be really important for your practical skill. And it'll just make the experience a lot easier and a lot more fun, really, if you do those things and you're kind of not trying to second guess yourself. So prepare well. Come prepared to do some counselling. That's what we're here for. That's what we're doing this subject for. You can take all that. It's like a pre-season's over. We're getting into the real stuff. So look forward to seeing you on Monday. Look forward to connecting with you guys online, and wish the Perth crew really well as you connect with June on Tuesday afternoon. And again, please, any questions that you have after preparing yourself and after reading through the information, find my contact, or my contacts on the site. So feel free to contact me via email or via a question online from the site. And yeah, we'll connect with you very shortly. Thank you very much. See ya.